Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, in today's video, I'd like to ask for your help with something. We put up a survey over the weekend. You can find it on agweather.com, ag-wx.com. Come over here and just click on this survey. Here's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to figure out what you want on this site, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And we're working hard on making it just a better site, one that you'll hopefully more compulsively consume. We just want to make it exactly what you want it to be. So fill that out for us and get us some feedback. Taking some of the feedback we've already received, I worked this weekend on some new stuff, and I'm going to show it to you. Now, this is not yet live and ready, but we were thinking a lot about some of the things folks were asking for, and this is possibly going to be a new landing page for us. It's just a demo right now, but it has radar, zoomable radar, something a lot of you have wanted to have access to, and we've got that going. In fact, you can see the storms going through parts of the Midwest right now. Plus, we're working on a weather feed. This is not real data, but we're going to have this nice way of just always having good content up. Oh, and this site looks good on mobile. And then you have the ability wherever you are to drop a pin. So you just click on the map and it drops a pin and gives you, zoomed in radar that you can have a look at. In fact, you can click around on this too and it'll shift everything around. But you've got statistics, you've got quick forecast cards, you've got access to all of my time series, just to kind of get, good information. We hope good information. I'm working hard on getting this together. Matt and Andrew are also working very, very diligently on this too. We'd like to just put something out there that you really want to see and consume. And so let us know. Just go back to the survey and fill it out for us. We'd appreciate it. Okay, with all that being said, I want to get into this weekend. We saw numerous amounts of severe weather across the country yet again. We had a particular area that was targeted. We'll just kind of highlight it here. This is not to say that what you see outside of this was not significant, but there was a region in here that saw just a lot of wind damage from some of these pretty nasty storms. Some of it kind of worked its way down to Illinois and Indiana. And of course, because we live here, we got to see some of this. Colleague Andrew Pritchard went out over to a town called Homer, Illinois, and got some just incredible pictures here of the damaging winds that just went through this local area. And he flew his drone up to get a little bit different view of this around this one particular farm, just to see this field flattened here by the winds. And just another view, just to see how around the farm, the corn is still standing, but outside of that, just completely wiped out. So it's important just to assess that we are continuing to see just a lot of severe weather this year. We're way above average statistically on severe storm reports. And this is just another example. In fact, my sister right over here, she lives just outside of Indianapolis. She's a principal at Fishers High School. So anyway, over there, she had so much rain that came through that her roof flooded and got into her upper level of her house. And so I was looking at the data because I was like, geez, Sarah, some pretty rough weather. And again, it's this kind of arcing corridor over the last 72 hours that just delivered a tremendous amount of rainfall. Now, outside of that, monsoonal moisture here, the system that came into the northwest, this was such needed precipitation. And then the storms, the daily storms that have hit the southeast, very hit or miss. And we can just now begin to see the beginning of where Hurricane Erin enters the picture here. But just to kind of take a closer look at the last 72 hours, I just want to highlight again, very, very heavy rainfall through this particular corridor. I wanted to kind of get a good picture of this for you. Now, it is raining in this region this morning, so we're adding to this particular map. But over the last 10 days, this has been kind of our wettest region in terms of just concentrating, just tremendous amounts of rainfall. And of course, this captures the big flooding event that hit Milwaukee recently as well. Okay, big picture-wise, though, we have watched, drought issues settle in here, and more of Illinois actually included in that, but the Delta and surrounding states, the Northeast continues to stay dry. And we've watched, while some monsoonal moistures come in, there's still a broad area here that has seen daily thunderstorm events, but just not the widespread rainfall that we can see. And tucked in between, we're keeping a close eye on parts of the southern plains, given the week 2 forecast I'm about to share with you in that region. I want to give it to you another way, too. This is how we look at the statistics going back to 133 years. And again, you can start to see those wet corridors in places, but very dry in a large region here, including more of that delta, and then throughout this part of the southwest. We're probably going to see some continual adjustments when the new drought monitor is released. All right, I was watching the satellite data, and if you remember when we were talking about if Erin was going to get to the coast, we were balancing out the presence of a system here, which you can see, and the Bermuda High. And we're going to talk more about that in just a few seconds. But just take a look yesterday afternoon at the storms. You can find the center of the circulation on the high pressure cell sitting there. and the storms that kind of ran the periphery of that. And also just, again, each one of these individual storms capable of producing strong downdrafts, local wind damage like you saw in Homer, Illinois. And so we're going to continue to kind of pockmark the country with more of these damaging reports as time goes on. But if we talk about Erin, it's pretty impressive. It hit Cat 5 over the weekend. The NOAA hurricane hunter went right into the middle of it. And if you've not seen that video, it's incredible what the NOAA hurricane hunter saw. But it has since been downgraded. That I don't want that term to make you think it is any less powerful, but it is, or any less. It is less powerful, but any less the potential for being destructive. But it has continued to spin up this morning, and that is a symmetric hurricane. It's pretty impressive overall. But as you know, there's pretty solid evidence that this one is going to miss. It is going to kind of straddle between Bermuda and the United States, and it's currently a Cat 4 strength, but we expect it to weaken as it moves farther north over less favorable conditions. It was over its best conditions yesterday on Sunday, right in through this area. Now, there is a system that's following this that we need to pay close attention to, and I'll come back to that in just a few seconds. But I wanted you to see, look at the size of the waves that this is going to be creating. Now, this part of the Atlantic is a very well-used shipping route, and so to see 50-foot waves rolling through just all the way through this week, look at this off the East Coast. And then we're going to watch this storm system get absorbed into the synoptic scale flow north of the, where it formed here and get pulled over toward Europe by next week. So this is next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to keep an eye on to see how large of a system this is as it heads over here toward, this part of Western Europe. Now, what's interesting is following it, there is another system. And last week I was quite concerned about this system given some of the model forecasts. But as it stands, the newest updates take whatever is behind this and likely, pull it maybe close to where Erin's track was. Now, that's difficult for hurricanes because of how much cold water hurricanes churn up. But what I can't ignore is watch the end of this right here. See how we're putting more of those ensemble members over the Greater Antilles, into Florida, possibly into the Gulf. There's a lot of uncertainty with this, of course, but we need to keep an eye on it. Probability-wise, over the next 5 days, we're just going to keep an eye on the development here. So that's Erin on and off, and we're just going to watch what happens after this, because as the model spreads out the risk, you're saying, well, the probabilities aren't high. Well, that's because of the distribution of possible outcomes. But you do need to know that we do have several models that are honing in on the possibility of this forming. So here goes Erin. And then what we're keeping an eye on is this. Now, there is a large front that's coming through Midwest, Mid-South, Eastern United States. And there it is. That's the trough of colder air that's going to be coming through. I'll show you more about that in a second. That could be massively influential in knocking this next system out. What I don't want to see is it sneak under that. It might go over here. And if that's the case, then this becomes a threat to the Gulf Coast. Now that, I'm just going to put this on here so that you know. We don't know. We don't know if it's going to happen. It's a range of possible scenarios. But there's a broader high. That's our Bermuda high that will likely steer this, hopefully, out in the same kind of path. And do you see how weak it is? Some of that, is due to wind shear, and some of that's due to the fact that Erin just went through and sucked the life out of the ocean here. And that is why we do not see the hurricane strengthening. Now, this is the operational European. I just want to show you real quick on Tropical Tidbits, the operational GFS. And again, it also has this system staying clear of the southeast United States. All right, so we're going to watch it all week. It's going to be just another bit of the tropical story, and we'll come back to that soon. But just to be transparent, this is the European ensemble looking at what are called member-wise minimum pressure. So in other words, you're seeing all the different ensemble members placing their minimum pressure, and we're kind of looking across those to see where the potential systems are going to be. So that is Erin getting spread out by this weekend. Now, what we're keeping an eye on is whatever this is. And just take note that some of the ensemble members are sending this to Florida, sending it into the Gulf. In fact, some of this is actually being contributed by things that are coming out of, the Caribbean or the Bay of Campeche. So we just need to understand that there is additional risk, but there's very little evidence at this point of what to expect. All right, so back to the pattern. All right, we do take note that the Pacific seems to be getting blocked up a little bit, but there's persistent troughing in here. And we're going to question where this places a ridge in the United States going forward. I think what you're seeing here is just a reflection of these next two tropical systems coming through because they're also in the AI models. We see a deeper trough that's over Europe, but a large ridge that's over parts of Russia and Siberia. And what we're trying to assess is what this might do to the upcoming pattern. So playing this forward, take a look at this. There goes Erin. Deeper troughs in the northwest, massive ridge. We'll take a look at the temperatures of this in a minute over the Four Corners states. Later on this week, this is by Friday, look at the size of this trough that's sneaking through the Canadian prairie that then dives into the east. And that is going to bring with it a pretty sizable temperature change in this part of the country. But then after that, the models wash out, as they've been doing. Maybe that is our high over low block in the Pacific, but I'm curious as to where it ends up placing the ridge in the United States. As it stands, you can kind of see it, the flow is doing something like that with the ridge being back further to the west. But I want to take a look into week 2 as to what this does to the storm activity here. I think there's an important story developing in that area in the models we should pay close attention to. So this morning about 6:15 a.m., we've got some heat issues, excessive heat, extreme heat warnings that are down here in this part of the Delta, and all around it excessive heat watches and heat advisories. Same thing down here in the southwest. Those white outlines represent the extreme heat warnings. And then flooding in parts of Minnesota. We can see why. If we look at the latest radar data, we had some larger storms into that area last night, and they continue to build and rebuild over the same area. And it has been an incredible year just to watch how repeatedly this particular spot in the country has seen storms. And I got asked about this on Sunday. A guy comes up to me and says, man, why am I getting missed? He lives in Urbana. He's like, it feels like every storm that comes misses. Well, where I live, we have had a drier trend. And because these storm systems feed off of local moisture in addition to Gulf moisture, okay, if you get into a pocket that's dry, the atmosphere sometimes has a difficult time letting a storm survive into your spot. Meanwhile, we have places where not only are the corn and beans just soaking the lower atmosphere with evaporative processes, but it's been wet here. Soil moisture's high. And so therefore, the atmosphere's like, it's easy to make storms in Nebraska and Iowa, Minnesota, coming out of South Dakota. Why? It's been wet there. The southeast has been just kind of hit or miss daily storms. And the southwestern monsoon is about 45 days late, in my opinion, but it is trying to get going here overall. Severe storm-wise today, we're going to keep an eye on parts of South Dakota and Nebraska and just watch this region here. But as we get past today, the Storm Prediction Center doesn't have a strong signal day 2 and day 3. But the threat for flooding rains highest, I think, here later on today in parts of the Midwest. If I show you the high-res NAM version of this, by the way, these models have been terrible as of late. This is playing through this afternoon, this evening on the high-res NAM. So I want to watch these storms, Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, more isolated convection here. There's Erin almost off the grid. Some evidence of some monsoonal moisture, and then just scattered storms that are moving through parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes. We get into the overnight hours, Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon and evening. And again, you're seeing the model's best attempt at producing this convection, but it has struggled with it. And it does this time of year with the placement. Until you get some sort of well-defined large front coming through, the models are going to struggle with that. Next, I haven't shown you this in a while. I typically look at a lot in winter because the fronts are more dominant and we can see things. But I do have a front coming we should talk about. As we play it through Tuesday into Wednesday and Thursday, okay, here's Thursday. Watch what's going on right here late this week. That's Thursday night getting into Friday. See that low curling up? It's in both models, and it's got a front. Now this is Erin, okay, off. Scattered storms like you just see every day down here. But that front right there has just piqued my interest because of the heat that the Midwest has seen lately, the plains have seen lately, the South has seen lately. I think so much hot weather this summer. And that front's going to clear things out. Now, what I'm interested in is that old classic signature we can get this time of year, where the low comes through but leaves some sort of boundary here. And if you put a ridge over the top of this will become your boundary of your best storms. That's next week. But we're keeping an eye on the position of that front, cooling things off, and then the resulting storms that come around the backside of it. So to show it all to you kind of in a single map, again, I'm working on getting these up there for you on the site. You'll just notice that this is now out to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. See it coming through there, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma? That's what I'm going to keep an eye on. Something coming right in through here, possibly delivering some heavy rains late this weekend or early next week. And then we just kind of get our classic ridge runners, I guess we could still call them. Erin, although there is something following Erin we're keeping an eye on. All right. Okay, probability-wise, you can see it once I start to just animate out for you through the end of this week, end of the weekend, who has the highest probability of grabbing an inch of rain. Now watch, this is Monday. Keep an eye right here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. See that filling in? We're keeping a close eye on what that could mean. Now this map also shows you in white where we're expecting things to be drier, and that would be these regions. And I'm heading over to Indiana twice this week for a couple of different events, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the shape of the crop in Indiana. Now, we have some indications that it's incredibly healthy, but there are pockets of Indiana that I think have been missed, and I'm going to go to, I think, Tipton and Greenville, and I'm excited to see that with a couple of Nutrien events out there. All right, moving on. Week 2. Look at this. All of the models have that same feature out there into week 2. I'll just pick on the European to show it to you. There it is. So let's watch that just to see if we do get some of that moisture in, plus the southwest monsoon filling in. Temperature-wise, I knocked off the first 4 days of August because they were cool and just brought in August 4th through the 17th. I'm trying to just look at where this heat has kind of striped the country. Florida, you've had nonstop heat. There's no doubt about it. But the rain and the cloud cover, look at this part of the southeast. Arizona, scorching hot. Great Lakes, very, very hot. And if you're curious how this last weekend stacks up against things, this is just the 14th through the 17th. Very, very hot weekend. But you know, there's a system late this week coming through. It's going to drop a front. That means the west, which has been cool this weekend, we're going to start to see temperatures really climbing there. Take a look at it. Here, I'll show you in a second. I did want to bring this map up. I'm going to start to put this live on the website very soon. It is cumulative stress degree days, so you will definitely have this for all of next growing season, and you're going to have the GDD map. We're actually going to make it interactive. I'm pretty excited about that. But we always look for values over 140 if you're growing corn in these locations. And the reason being that there was some research done by Dr. Ellen Taylor that suggested over 140 stress degree days and you see some yield loss. So I'm curious about some of these areas hitting those numbers. Now let's get on to the temperature forecast. So here's a hot one today. Yes, my son, who just turned 13 over the weekend, is wearing a sweatshirt to school this morning because he thinks it looks cool. But whatever, it's 90 where we are. Hundreds down here. Look at that. Cool coasts. Play it forward. There's Tuesday, Wednesday. Look at the heat in Montana. But you know, late in this week, the heat's going to shift west. Front dives into the northern plains, upper Midwest. That's Friday. Look at the temperatures coming back up in the Central Valley and in the Northwest. Much cooler air. We may see some spots in North Dakota not get out of the 60s by Saturday. And then as we go into the weekend, that's what Sunday looks like. The models have bounced all over the place, everything beyond day 10. So this is the next 5 days. We've got that down. Then as you see the front come through, that's day 5 through 10. So this has trended cooler in this area. On Friday, this time frame, this whole area was still forecast hotter, and now we've got it cooler than average. The west has taken on the heat. And day 5 through 10, we end up finding ourselves here. Okay, here's what I want to finish with today. The CPC on Friday released this as their week 3, week 4 map. And you're going, well, I see the warmth south, but I don't see a lot of information over there on the right. And I do believe we're kind of back into a time period of some lower predictability. In fact, I felt like all of summer was that. So you see a broad area of white on this map indicating equal chances. Sorry about that. Now, this morning as I looked at this, one of the reasons I'm late in getting to you, I like to get this video recorded well before 7 a.m. Or I try to record it at 6 a.m. But it was because I can't find a good signal. I'm like, all right, let's look for this. I spent my whole weekend writing code rather than looking at the weather, and as a result, I don't like where I've landed in my understanding. So I'm out here going, okay, what's changed? We've got still the massive amount of warm water in the North Pacific. We've got our strong trade winds giving us that La Nina signal, which we detailed on Friday. Go have a look at it. We're still very warm here, all right, compared to normal. And we know that like MJO, as we've been talking about for weeks, is just kind of planted somewhere over here, phase 2 to phase 4 or 5. Now, this is why we think the hurricane season might calm down a little bit for the rest of August. When I say calm down, I didn't say no systems. I just mean not prolific system after system after system. But that's why September We think it might open back up again here, but as you start to see the lower signal for more of a lid on the atmosphere. But if the MJO, according to the what's called the Axis S2 forecast that's run out of Australia, tries to live over in phase 2-3, which is what their forecast model suggests, there's the chance that we get some sort of southwest ridge, stronger flow coming through here around this trough, and maybe some ridging east. But I cannot rest on that. But it's why when we look out there at some of the forecast models, they don't offer any information. If you looked at this right now and said, well, that's the forecast from August 21 to September 21, doesn't it look like what I just showed you for week 2? Little drier signal there and there with the wetter conditions here. But the only thing I can see with this is that it's just hanging on to persistence and not picking up on a pattern. Yet if you dropped a trough like I just showed you here and a ridge there, you would see a wetter corridor running over the top of this into this region. I'm still convinced myself that we cannot let our guard down in the Gulf. Models are just hung up on something there. So that's the European solution. There is a GFS model run that goes out that far as well, and that's what it has. It is very aggressive on the southwest monsoon, but drier in some of the similar areas. All right. So we start looking just for other pieces to the puzzle, and I've told you for the last 2 weeks I want to talk about this PDO, because in terms of the sheer, negative values we're getting, take a look at this. Look at that, just massive drop, and here it is now. In July, -4. So that particular index is measuring the ocean temperatures. And if you're unaware what the PDO is, it looks something like this. When the PDO is positive, we are warm here and very warm there. It links typically with an El Nino, and we're cold there. When the PDO is negative, which it is now, this is warm, okay? And all of that is cold. Yet we've not been able to see, so I'm telling you, we're looking at right now record negative PDO, yet this here is not cold. Now we've got cold there and there and there. This is very warm. I know you're going, man, these colors are messing with me. I understand. But I don't think that the PDO means what it used to mean. And that's why we're going to struggle to use it as an indicator. And I'm going to make a case for you this week. I'm going to work on it this week and beyond as to why the PDO is becoming something different. And I don't know what it's going to be, but there's so much additional heat content in the North Pacific Ocean that it cannot be ignored going forward, that it's so warm. So these correlations, this is precipitation. If the PDO was positive, these regions would be wet. Okay, so I'll label it W, and these regions, not C, would be dry. Put a D there. Okay, but we don't have that. We have a negative correlation, meaning that this would be wet and these would be dry. Got it? But these are not strong anomalies. And if we keep this all the way into winter, let's just go from December to February, the PDO signal would suggest, so just so you see this, all right, the PDO signal, remember we have a negative PDO, so this is a negative correlation, which means that these would be wet and these would be dry. So we would see active Ohio Valley, snowy northern plains and Rockies, drought building in the southern plains, drought in the southeast. But I'm just saying, don't use it. I do not think, if you found a meteorologist that settled on winter, or if you just cracked open the Farmer's Almanac and read it, because I saw the new forecast came out, just please take it all with a grain of salt. If someone's settled, they're not really looking at the data, all right? Okay, that's it. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk soon. Thanks.